if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Wow, you did hit me with the hard one.
Right. That's right.
One superpower would be, the ability to probably spread love to everybody just because the world is such like a nasty place and everybody's trying to get ahead on one another and take advantage of people that if you could just instill the love in everybody.
I love that. Yeah, that's real cool. And you're right. We need it. Yeah, we definitely need it. Cool, man. I appreciate those answers. Mahoney Concrete Systems. Talk to me about what made you decide to go into business for yourself, and then even more importantly, what were those first couple of months like for you?
Yeah, interesting. So I didn't quite set out to be an entrepreneur from the beginning. I was just happy working for somebody else. I didn't go to college. I dabbled in concrete work in high school, just to make some extra money.
Yeah.
And got out of high school and was a commercial fisherman for 2 years.
Wow.
And that just wasn't the lifestyle for me. That was the playtime that I wanted, but it wasn't the business that I wanted.
That's
So I kind of got back into the concrete because that's the other trade that I knew. I didn't go to college. So I kind of floundered locally, I'll say, working for small time guys until 2000, graduated high school in 2005. So 2008, I started working for a large commercial concrete company out of Naples.
okay.
And just enjoyed being part of that team because it was a $200 million a year concrete company, and kind of everything was an option at that point, new trucks and new equipment and travel. We traveled the state, traveled the Southeast. So I
Sounds
enjoyed
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Getting out of Sarasota, which I love Sarasota. I'm a local boy here. So
Okay.
fun to just see the different parts of the state. Got the pour concrete in basically every city over the state. And started out basically as a equipment operator, kind of, just
Okay.
doing my own thing on the concrete crew, and was noticed for just kind of being a hard worker and being a little bit smarter than some of the people who I was working around. So they kept kind of pushing me into management, pushing me into management. So I spent years as a superintendent running specific projects, and then I spent years as a project manager managing multiple projects. And then people started approaching me with new projects for the company, and I kind of took it upon myself to bid those on my own time, and started winning some projects for the company without being asked, and executing and bringing the check to the office. And they kept saying thank you, but there was no money on the backside of that.
Sure.
So right, I was looking for the dollar at that point in my life. So I kind of realized that I could probably do this on my own. So I went to my boss at the time and asked him for like a small piece of the work that I was bringing to the table. And he laughed at me and said, "You can't do that, Terry." So that kind of was like my motivation to start doing my own thing. So
Kind of already doing all the heavy lifting
right.
at that point. So excellent. Yeah.
But what I didn't realize at that time is that there's more to just winning the job and executing the job.
Right.
The business as a whole can be exhausting for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I didn't finish college either. I didn't go to B school. And so I was an operator, right? I think I'm still an operator. Yeah. In my core. But yeah, you don't know you don't know what you don't know. Right.
Right.
So the business side of things, me personally, I kind of had to learn the hard way. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. And then you learn and oh, that stings.
Right.
And I won't let that happen again.
Right.
And then you just kind of learn. So when you're starting your business, what was the first few months like? What was the first year like even?
So, um, it was good. I had a core group of guys that kind of respected me from the company that I'd worked at before, and the way I had earned the respect from them in each kind of different trade within the concrete construction as a whole. The guys that tie rebar, I'd go tie rebar with those guys and tie just as fast or faster than they could. And the carpenters, try to learn every aspect of it. And that's what got me the respect from the guys. So then I felt like I could direct them and then they would listen to me. So I started my company with probably about 15, 15 guys, but they were all solid dudes. So,
Yeah.
um, I was kind of shooting for the stars at that point and didn't want to underbid myself on these jobs. So, um, I figured that if I got these jobs at a big number, I'll figure out how to make money on it.
That's right.
But then that kind of dried up because you need that consistent pipeline because everybody wants a check every week. So you can't just hit home runs. So
Right.
it's kind of the cycle of figuring out what jobs I needed.
Yeah, and that's, a lot of people that start businesses, it's interesting what you said there. I didn't want to underbid, right? Because a lot of people start a business and they're concerned. They have that imposter syndrome, so to speak, and they underbid because, hey, I'm going to be cheaper than everybody else.
Right.
But you're saying, hey, I didn't want to leave money on the table,
Right.
which is the way it should be.
Right.
That's a good quality to have. But yeah, you're right. Everybody wants a check every week, and they're looking
Right.
at
But
it to
the
you.
cycle of it came back around to where when those home run jobs kind of ran out, then I started realizing that I really needed to grow my brand, we'll call it, and was basically taking anything I could get at that point. So it kind of went full circle right there. There I was taking jobs to almost lose money sometimes just to kind of get my foot in the door.
Yeah, and keep your guys busy.
Right. Specifically, the place and finish, like service side of our business is viewed from our customers as once you do a good job, we're going to keep calling you back. We're not going to kind of shop around. So
Right.
getting your foot in the door for that cheap number, helped me kind of get established with some of the players.
Makes sense.
Working for the company that I used to work for, traveling around the state gave me good contacts all over the place. So then
Sure.
I had all these different people that I could reach out to from Ocala to Miami, obviously in Naples, back home in Sarasota. I ran a division of that company in Atlanta at one time, so then I had contacts up that way. So
Yeah.
currently, we're working on all the same markets.
You're in all those same markets. Nice.
Sure.
Nice. Okay. Okay. So you started with 15. How many guys you got? How many team members you got now?
We're about 100. We've been about 125 and scaled down the last year a little bit.
So when you go from operator, and when you started, you're 15 strong. So you're by default, you're a leader. You have to be, right? But then when you're going from 15 to 100 or even 125, like you're the man at the top, you're the leader. What what leadership qualities do you try to embody to build the culture you're trying to create?
Going back to the company that I worked for before, they gave me a lot of ideas of what not to do.
There you go.
They're kind of shooting off the hip all the time, and they were successful at it, but it wasn't kind of the business motto that I wanted. So I realized that if I did a couple of things differently, specifically being honest with your employees about everything, something that I still talk regularly with my executive coach, Kim Colburn, and
Shout out Kim.
yeah, shout out to Kim. Yeah, being brutally honest. And then what we've thrown in there recently is being compassionate, being brutally honest and compassionate to be able to get that point across to whoever you're talking to.
Yeah.
I think it goes a
Love
long way.
I love it. Yeah. Brutally honest, transparent.
Right.
I think it opens the doors for feedback too, right? For
Right.
us, because we have to grow as leaders and we need that feedback. And if we're being honest with our team members, then eventually they're going to trust and they're going to be honest with us.
Right.
That's the hope,
Right.
at least. When you are thrust into a leadership role, I think that we have this idea of what leadership is. So let me give you some context. I'm a military brat. My dad said, do this, do as I say, you do it. It's what I say.
Right.
When you're running a company, it's not necessarily do as I say, not as I do. It's more come alongside. When you're starting to be a leader, you may think it's this or that, and then realize that leadership is really something more. Did you come into your position as a leader thinking it would be one way and found that there were some differences?
Not necessarily because I considered myself a leader at the company that I was at. So I was kind of, leading the same type of operation into myself, which was easy to roll into. So it was more of the business side and the stuff that I wasn't doing, the leadership of the office and whatnot that I didn't have the experience in, but the leadership of the guys just kind of was a continuation of what I'd already been
You've already
doing.
been doing it. You're already comfortable with it.
Right.
For me, I had to I had to, like, figure it out. I'd always just worked. I worked in the factory and in banking and stuff, but I was always just a guy. Wasn't like
Right.
the leader. And so kind of going back to you don't know what you don't know. I remember the first employee I hired, I think I told this story, like I hovered. She was a web developer. Shout out Julie. She was a web developer. And I'd go, like, why are you doing it that way? And she was, trained and educated. She finished school, all that. But I'd be like, no, don't do it that way. Do it my way. Do it my way. And it was a real learning experience to be like, hold on, if I empower her or empower this employee, this team member, and they get to come to work and enjoy what they're doing, I'm pouring into them, I might get way more out of them,
Right.
more of a buy-in out of them than I could ever ask for by pouring into them. So it was something I kind of had to learn along the way.
Right. I think I've kind of been the opposite of that. I'm definitely not a micromanager. I'm more on the side of do your own thing and just kind of expect you to. And that doesn't work with all types of people because some people need that, I need you to tell me what to do to be successful, the structure, right?
They do.
And that's kind of what I have a hard time with is giving people the structure, giving people the freedom and the people have kind of weeded themselves out, that don't fit the culture.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. Like that's the idea behind that culture, right? Because you're not gonna hit a home run on every team member either,
Right.
But if they don't fit in the culture, you would hope that the culture,
Right.
and shouts out to them. Like it's just not a good fit for them at the time. That's okay.
Right. Everybody's got to find their place and it might not be here and it's
Right.
somewhere.
But it can be tough dealing with like multiple personalities, like
Yes.
everybody's a little bit different. They consume knowledge a little bit different and they enjoy life or enjoy work
Right.
differently.
Multiple cultures too.
Multiple
We have a lot
cultures.
of Spanish employees.
Okay. Un poquito español?
Sí, hablo mucho. I
Oh, okay.
failed Spanish in high school, funny enough. But I spent 6 years living in Miami, and every store you go into speaks Spanish. We got on top of that, the majority of my workers, like I said, were Spanish. So if I wanted to get on their level, then I had to kind of like,
Yeah, no,
they would look at me when I said something in English and pretend like they didn't know. So then I was like, I'm gonna learn this in Spanish. Now there's no confusion. I know what I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's right. And I understand what you just said.
Right. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know very un poquito for sure. But you're right, in Miami, if you want to get a cheeseburger.
Right.
Yeah, I know a little bit.